Hi everyone! I've decided to make this video because I recently passed my CAE with grade A and I thought it would be a good idea to share my experience with you. I'll try to pass on some tips that hopefully will come in handy for you, and I'll also leave you a link down below to all the resources that I used for preparation, including useful speaking and writing phrases, and my statement of results in case you're interested. So let's get started. I didn't attend any CAE preparatory courses. First of all, because there are no such courses in my small town, and secondly, because at the time I already had a solid knowledge base in terms of grammar and vocabulary, so I could get ready just fine by myself. And I'm not saying that self-study is something that would work for everyone, but I do feel that at the advanced level you can achieve great results studying on your own, provided of course that you stay motivated and disciplined in your studies. I was really keen on getting a high score, so I managed to fill my head with a ton of new information that I probably wouldn't have learned otherwise. Which is why I think that taking this exam has two benefits. It gives you not only the certificate, but also a great boost in your language skills, thanks to all the time and effort that you put into preparation. Now, before I started getting ready for the exam, I did a couple of practice tests because I was curious to know how well I would do. And it turned out that at first I didn't perform as well as I'd thought I would, which was surprising and disappointing considering how many years I had devoted to studying English. But thinking about this, I realized that the problem had little to do with the level of difficulty. I just wasn't prepared for the intricacy of exam questions. The truth is, both reading and listening sections are really tricky. They have distractors in them that sometimes make it seem like the question is easy and the answer is obvious. They often take some piece from the text or the recording and use it in the multiple choice section, sometimes slightly paraphrasing it, so that you are somehow tricked into choosing the answer that looks similar to what you just heard or read. My mistake was to be fooled by those distractors at first, but I realized that the purpose of the exam is not just for you to get familiar with the information, but to process and analyze it. So the best thing you can do to learn to notice these tricky moments and not be fooled by them is to do as many practice tests as you can. As for the reading and use of English section, I try to spend minimum time on parts 1 to 4 and leave plenty of time for parts 5 to 8, because those huge elaborate texts are really time-consuming. But I discovered that it's much easier to orient yourself in this pile of information if you look through the questions first, and then, while reading, underline everything that seems important and relevant to those questions. In this way, if you're searching for something in particular, or you want to go over your answer again, you don't waste time reading the whole text from the very beginning. You just look through the key information that you've underlined, and it saves you loads of time. When I started doing that, my results got way better in practice tests, and it turned out really helpful at the actual exam. So underlining is one of the things that I highly recommend doing. As for listening, I would say that the level of difficulty and the speed of the recordings were pretty much the same as in sample papers. Each recording was played twice, so I personally had enough time to think over my answers. What really helps is visualizing. Try to imagine the situation in your head, visualizing what you hear, because it kind of helps you retain the information better and concentrate more, and again, not be fooled by those distractors. The only thing that I didn't like much was the quality of the sound. The thing is, we were taking the test in a pretty big classroom, so naturally the acoustics left much to be desired. So the sound was loud, but it wasn't clear enough, like it was coming from a barrel. So it kind of made it harder to catch some random words. But this is something that you have to bear with because it obviously won't be as comfortable as sitting at home close to your speakers and listening to something in the peace and quiet of your room. So just be ready to deal with low quality sound as well. On the whole, I think that the listening section was probably the easiest part of the exam for me. Speaking, on the other hand, turned out a little bit more challenging. First of all, I was taking the exam in another city, and we were supposed to be there at 9 a.m. for registration, so I had to get up at 5:30. And I naturally had trouble gathering my thoughts in the morning. But what really helped was listening to English podcasts on my way there. And it's another thing that I highly recommend doing before the speaking test. It doesn't matter what you're gonna listen to. It could be an audiobook or some YouTube video if you wish. As long as it's in English, it will help you kind of switch your brain into English mode and get your native language out of your head, at least for a while. I did that, and I'm sure it had a positive impact on my performance. What's difficult about the speaking test is that it's the only part of the exam where your performance doesn't entirely depend on you, because apart from showing your knowledge of impressive words and grammar structures, you're supposed to demonstrate your interaction skills. And since I didn't have anyone to practice with at home, I had no clue how the collaborative tasks would be done. But in theory, according to what I'd read in some course book, the best way to do it is to speak for 20 seconds tops and then let your partner step in, so that you have a dialogue, not two separate monologues. And I tried to follow this theory, but somehow my exam partner didn't ask me much for my opinion and mostly went on chattering for quite a while on her own. So at first I was sitting there waiting for her to finally turn the conversation back to me, but when it didn't happen and the clock was ticking, I started cutting her off. As simple as that, because otherwise I just wouldn't be able to speak out myself. So my point is, if you happen to be paired with someone as chatty as that, don't hesitate to interrupt. You should do it in a polite kind of way, obviously, but don't just sit there waiting patiently if you feel like your partner's answer is getting way too long, because the time limit is really tight and you just won't be able to demonstrate what you're capable of. All in all, I have 3 tips for this part of the exam. Number 1, try to avoid using boring and simple vocabulary. Honestly, I'm really surprised that in the Cambridge example videos they show students using phrases like "it's very important" or "I like reading," because in my opinion those phrases have nothing to do with the advanced level. I think that at this level your vocabulary must be much more colorful. So for example, instead of saying "I like reading," you could say "I'm an avid reader" or "I'm keen on reading." Anything would be better than just "like." The same way, instead of saying "it's very important," you could say "it's essential, crucial, vital." So these things really impress the examiners and will definitely earn you some extra points. Number 2, practice part 2, the one with the pictures, with a timer, because you only have 60 seconds, which is basically nothing. So most importantly, don't waste time describing the pictures. In this picture I can see a man who's reading a newspaper in his garden, or maybe it's a magazine, I'm not sure. Start answering those 2 questions that you see on top right away, because otherwise you'll just run out of time before you even know it. And number 3, respect your partner and don't forget to ask their opinion. Writing was the one part of the exam that I was really apprehensive of, because I've never had a flair for writing in my native Russian, let alone in a foreign language. But it turned out to be just another case of practice makes perfect, because when I read a lot of writing samples and learned more about the differences in style and register and layout, I kind of started to get the hang of it. I think what's most important here is to be versatile when practicing this part. Try your hand at various topics like environment, entertainment, relationships, anything that you can think of, because in this way, when you are at the actual exam, you can quickly think of ideas and have a range of appropriate vocabulary to use. At my exam, both the essay and the informal email that I chose in part 2 were related to career, working life, important life choices, things like that. Obviously there was no time for any drafts, so what I did was spend about 10 minutes on each part, planning everything out, noting down some words and grammar structures that I could use. And then I tried to form complete sentences in my mind before putting them on paper. I definitely wouldn't advise you to waste time on word count. Instead, when practicing at home, just print out the answer sheets and roughly estimate how much space you need to write your answer. And if you do have some time left, if you're lucky to have some time left, then you'd better use it on something much more important, like checking your answer and making sure that everything's in order, because when you are in a hurry, you end up making really stupid mistakes, which was my case as well, because it kind of slipped my mind that I was supposed to write an email, not a letter. So I completely forgot to write from, to, and subject at the beginning. I started with "Hi Sam" right away, and they must have taken some points off because of that. So constant vigilance. Summing up, I would say I spent the biggest chunk of my preparation time brushing up on vocabulary, which in my opinion is key to success. I wrote down every new word and expression that I came across in CAE course books, practice tests, books on phrasal verbs, books on collocations, basically everything. I would recommend writing down not only the translation, but also one or two example sentences with the word that you want to learn, especially when it comes to phrasal verbs, which, as you know, have dozens of different meanings. In this way, it's kind of easier to memorize them. Another thing that you have to keep in mind is the register. So I used the Longman Dictionary of Contemporary English to check whether the word was formal or informal, and then marked it in my copybook. I must say that this dictionary became my most favorite ever, and I think that it's an absolute must-have for any English learner. It's a great resource, so check it out. So that's it. I really hope that this video will be of some use to you. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments section and I'll be happy to answer them if I can. If you've already taken this exam, please let me know how it went for you. And if you haven't, then good luck and all the best. Bye!